Watch. 1987. A family of tourists vanishes in the Australian outback. Their car is found abandoned in the desert. Passports and money remain untouched. But water is missing. The tracks of 4 people lead out into nowhere, then stop abruptly on bare rock. No bodies ever found. 20 years pass. 2008. An experienced ranger, a survival expert, disappears in the same region. The pattern repeats. A perfectly working vehicle, a discarded radio. And again, footsteps vanish in open terrain. Official reports call it an accident, but investigators recorded a magnetic anomaly at the very moment the ranger went missing. Is this a coincidence, or is it something more systematic? If a seasoned expert and an entire family can disappear following the same scenario, who writes these rules? And what really takes people when all traces simply end? The Australian outback is one of the largest uninterrupted desert regions on Earth, spanning 5.6 million square kilometers. That covers 70% of the entire Australian continent. The outback stretches from the western coastline to the Great Dividing Range in the east, from the Tropic of Capricorn in the north to the Southern Ocean. It includes 10 major deserts: the Great Victoria Desert, the Great Sandy Desert, Tanami Desert, Little Sandy Desert, Sturt Stony Desert, Simpson Desert, Cavallari Desert, Paderca Desert, Mulga Desert, and Gibson Desert. Population density in the outback is less than 1 person per square kilometer. The entire region holds no more than 450,000 people, most living in small towns or mining settlements. Distances between populated areas are measured in hundreds of kilometers. Between the cities of Perth and Adelaide lies 2,100 kilometers of mostly desert terrain. From Alice Springs to Darwin is 1,500 kilometers of desert. The outback's road network consists of several main highways and thousands of kilometers of tracks of varying quality. Many roads become impassable after rain or during extreme heat. The climate is marked by extremes in both temperature and humidity. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 50 degrees Celsius in the shade, while winter nights can drop close to 0. Daily swings reach 30 to 40 degrees Celsius. By day, the thermometer might read 45 degrees, and by night, just 5 degrees. Average annual rainfall in central areas does not exceed 250 millimeters. Rain is unpredictable, and droughts can last several years in a row. Air humidity in the center often falls below 10%, creating extreme risks of dehydration. Evaporation in the outback is among the fastest in the world. Even an open container of water may dry out within hours on a summer's day. Ultraviolet radiation here reaches extreme levels, with the UV index regularly exceeding 14 units, several times higher than what's considered safe. The outback poses countless threats to human life, making it one of Earth's deadliest regions for unprepared travelers. Dehydration is the biggest killer. A person here can lose up to 4 liters of water per hour via sweating in extreme temperatures. Without water, death comes in 2 to 3 days. Heat stroke sets in as body temperature rises above 41 degrees Celsius, causing confusion, hallucinations, convulsions, and coma. Without immediate medical attention, heat stroke is often fatal. Sunburn in the outback can reach 3rd degree in just hours. Skin damage worsens with dehydration and may lead to infection. Wildlife adds further danger. Venomous snakes, including the taipan and eastern brown snake, can kill without antivenom. Spiders like the funnel web and redback can also be deadly. According to the Australian Federal Police, the outback is home to disproportionately high numbers of missing people relative to population density. Between 1980 and 2020, the outback saw 473 cases of disappearances, 137 of which remain unsolved. The outback covers 70% of Australia's territory, but holds only 3% of its people. yet accounts for 38% of all disappearances nationally. Tourists make up 42% of those who go missing. Local residents account for 31%. Temporary mining workers, 17%. Other groups comprise 10%. Men account for 68% of missing persons. The average age of the vanished is 34 years. The most vulnerable group, men aged 25 to 40. Seasonal stats show two peaks, a summer maximum from December to February, 43%, and a winter peak in June to August, 28%. Search and rescue in the outback is coordinated by the Australian Maritime and Aviation Search and Rescue Centre, working with state police. The Royal Australian Rescue Service maintains a network of 3 regional centres covering the territory. They're equipped with helicopters, planes, and specialized ground gear. The average cost of a search operation is 200,000 Australian dollars. The most complex operations can cost up to $2 million and last for weeks. Response time to distress signals varies from 1 hour near major cities to 12 hours in remote areas. Their effectiveness reaches 73% when the precise location is known, but only 31% when search zones are undefined. Over the last 10 years, search and rescue services conducted 1,247 operations in the outback, rescued 2,300 people, and found the remains of 321 missing individuals. The Outback's transport network consists of a few main arteries and a vast grid of secondary roads of uneven quality. The Stewart Highway, stretching 2,800 kilometers, connects Darwin and Adelaide through the center. The Great Northern Road runs 3,200 kilometers from Perth to Darwin along the west coast. The Eyre Highway, 2,700 kilometers, links Perth to Adelaide along the southern coastline through the Nullarbor Plain. Most secondary roads are unpaved tracks requiring four-wheel drive. Fuel stations may be up to 500 kilometers apart. Many are not open around the clock, and closures can occur without warning. Cellular service is only available along major highways and within 50 kilometers of large towns. More than 70% of the outback has no mobile coverage at all. The tourism boom of the 1980s brought a new wave of foreigners to the region, and with it, a spike in reported disappearances. Mining booms in remote areas attracted temporary workers, many unfamiliar with desert dangers. The founding of the Australian Federal Police in 1979 improved coordination between states and territories. Computerization in the 80s allowed police to spot patterns among missing persons and link previously scattered cases. March 23, 1987. The Beaumont family, Klaus and Ingrid, and their 2 children, 13-year-old Thomas and 11-year-old Annette, embark on a road trip through Central Australia. Renting a Toyota Land Cruiser from Alice Springs, their planned 2-week route through Uluru-Kata Tjuta National Park and Kings Canyon was considered safe for tourists. Their last contact was March 25th at a roadhouse in Curtin Springs, where they bought fuel and supplies. The cruiser was scheduled to return to Alice Springs on March 30th, but the family never showed. The rental company notified police on April 1st. The search began the next day, covering a radius of 200 kilometers from their last known location. The vehicle was found on April 7th, 25 kilometers off a back road, stuck in sand but undamaged. Inside were passports, cash, and most food, but one backpack, a camera, and several water canisters were missing. Footprints led southeast for roughly 1 kilometer, ending abruptly on bare rock. Tracker dogs picked up scent 2 kilometers from the car, but it faded near a dry riverbed. Over 30 days, search teams swept 8,000 square kilometers with helicopters, aircraft, and ground crews. No trace of the family or their remains was ever found. The operation was officially terminated May 12th after all realistic options were exhausted. The case remains unsolved. It's believed the family set out to walk for help and died of dehydration, but no bodies have ever been recovered. August 10, 1991. John Olver, a 36-year-old ranger at Uluru-Kata-Chuta National Park, disappears during a routine patrol. Olver had 8 years' experience in the park and was one of the most skilled desert navigators on the team. He left headquarters at 8 a.m. in a Toyota 4-wheel drive to check remote tourist trails and water sources. The planned route included 5 checkpoints within 100 kilometers of Uluru. He was expected back by 6 p.m. When Olver failed to return, emergency search procedures launched that night at 10 p.m. His vehicle was found the next morning, 40 kilometers west of Uluru, parked by a dirt track. The engine was off, keys missing. The radio was set to an emergency frequency, but no distress call had been sent. The last contact was logged at 11:30 a.m. Personal items, a backpack with water, GPS, and emergency gear, were missing from the vehicle, suggesting he left voluntarily. Tracks led north toward rocky outcrops 2 kilometers away, then vanished on hard stone. Weather on the day of disappearance was favorable. Air temperature 28 degrees, clear skies, light wind. Search teams covered 50 kilometers around the vehicle using helicopters, thermal imaging, and indigenous trackers. Despite 2 weeks of intense searching, absolutely no trace of Olver was ever found. His case is officially ranked as a disappearance under mysterious circumstances. Analysis of disappearances in the outback throughout the 80s and 90s revealed recurring patterns. Most vanishings occurred within 100 kilometers of major landmarks, where visitor density was high. 73% of missing persons were foreign tourists unfamiliar with the desert or underestimating its risks. Abandoned vehicles were typically in good working order, with no sign of breakdown. There were rarely any indications of struggle or foul play, suggesting the vehicles were left willingly. Valuables and documents were usually left inside, while backpacks, water, and survival gear were missing. When print tracks were found, they usually led toward visible landmarks, rocky outcrops, hills, or potential water sources. Search and rescue operations in the 80s and 90s were hampered by primitive technology. GPS navigation was limited to the military and special services. Civilians relied on paper maps and compasses. Mobile phones barely existed, with no coverage in the outback. Satellite phones were prohibitively expensive for most visitors. Searches relied on visual spotting from the air. Infrared and thermal imaging were primitive and often ineffective in extreme heat. Coordination among rescue agencies was hindered by limited communication and lack of unified protocols. Missing persons records were kept separately by each state, slowing pattern recognition. Weather forecasting was also less accurate, complicating search planning and survival odds assessment. A series of disappearances throughout the outback in the 1980s and 90s led to changes in Australia's tourism industry and new safety measures. Tour operators introduced mandatory desert safety briefings for all clients planning independent outback trips. Rental companies began requiring detailed itineraries and emergency contact information. Regular check-ins became standard for groups hiring vehicles in remote regions. Hotels and motels in gateway towns provided guests with safety leaflets and recommended gear lists. The Australian government launched a public information campaign for international tourists, warning of outback dangers. New warning signs appeared along highways, outlining hazards and giving safety advice. On July 14, 2001, 27-year-old Peter Falconio and his girlfriend, 27-year-old Joanne Lees, set out on an epic journey across Australia. This British couple planned a year-long cross-country adventure after finishing university. Falconio was a builder from Huddersfield, West Yorkshire. Lees worked as a travel agent in Brighton, East Sussex. They had been dating for 4 years, planning to wed after returning home. The couple bought a used orange Volkswagen Combi in Sydney for $8,000 and spent weeks preparing the van for a long journey through the outback. Their route included major sites: Uluru, Kings Canyon, Darwin, and the West Coast, over 10,000 kilometers. By July, the couple had already spent months exploring the East Coast and Central Australia, carefully documenting everything in photos and letters home. On July 14th, they were in Alice Springs, preparing to drive towards Darwin via the Stewart Highway, a major north-to-south artery crossing the outback. That evening, around 9 p.m., they left Alice Springs, planning to drive a few hundred kilometers before camping for the night. The road in this stretch is a two-lane strip cutting across desert with minimal traffic at night. Around 10:30 p.m., roughly 300 kilometers north of Alice Springs, the pair noticed another car following and signaling with flashing lights. The driver gestured for them to pull over, pointing at the back of their Volkswagen. Falconio stopped, suspecting a mechanical issue. A stranger, described as a mustached man in dark clothing, approached and claimed there was a problem with their exhaust, offering to help inspect underneath. Falconio got out to check. Lise waited inside. Minutes later, Lise heard a sound, either a shot or a loud bang. She never heard Falconio's voice again. The stranger then moved to the passenger side and threatened Lise with a gun, trying to force her from the vehicle. She managed to start the van and attempted to drive off, but the attacker leapt inside. In the ensuing struggle, Lise escaped by jumping from the moving van. She tumbled onto the roadside and played dead. The attacker stopped, searched for her, but she hid in the roadside brush, remaining still for hours, hearing engines, doors, voices. At dawn, Lise discovered both the man and vehicles were gone. She staggered to the highway and was picked up by truckers around 5:30 a.m. Police in Taitree took her statement. The crime scene, 330 kilometers north of Alice Springs, was inspected for evidence. Investigators found skid marks, signs of a struggle, and the couple's personal belongings scattered along the roadside. But the Volkswagen had vanished. A massive search immediately launched. Helicopters and aircraft scoured the land for the missing van and any sign of Peter Falconio. Ground teams combed roadside brush and possible hiding spots. After a week, the Volkswagen was found in the bush 50 kilometers from the attack, burned out, but no sign of Falconio. On August 23rd, a month after the incident, police arrested Bradley John Murdoch in Adelaide. Lise identified Murdoch, a 30-year-old mechanic, in a photo lineup. His Toyota Land Cruiser matched the description of the suspect's vehicle. Inside Murdoch's car, police found blood, hairs, and DNA from both Falconio and Lise, as well as handcuffs and adhesive tape. Firearms, including unregistered rifles and pistols, were found in his home. He had a criminal record for assault and illegal firearms. Phone records put him on the Stewart Highway the night of the attack. The trial began in Darwin in October 2005, with Murdoch facing charges for Falconio's murder, the assault and unlawful imprisonment of Joanne Lise, and sexual assault. Prosecutors presented DNA evidence, expert testimony, and Lisa's consistent, detailed account. The most crucial evidence was Falconio's blood in Murdoch's car, with DNA odds estimated at 1 in a billion. On December 13, 2005, Murdoch was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison with no parole. He refused to cooperate with investigators and never revealed the location of Falconio's body. Police searched for years with radar, metal detectors, cadaver dogs, and followed up hundreds of public tips, all unsuccessful. The Falconio case brought international focus to the dangers faced by travelers in the Australian outback. In its aftermath, Australia amplified safety campaigns targeting foreign tourists. Emergency phones connected to satellite networks became common along major outback highways. Agencies issued more thorough advice and required desert safety briefings for rental car customers. Police increased patrols along tourist routes, especially at night. Mobile apps with GPS tracking for travelers were developed, including automatic emergency alerts for lost contact. Satellite beacons, emergency position, indicating radio beacons, or EPIRBs, became affordable and encouraged for visitors. Mobile coverage expanded along highways, and GPS navigation became standard in rental cars. Travel behaviors changed. Independent travel in the outback fell by 20% among international tourists after the case. Many travelers, especially from the UK, opted for guided tours rather than journeying alone. The Falconio case became a symbol of outback danger in the global imagination, sometimes exceeding statistical reality. Australia's tourism industry spent millions to restore its image as a safe destination. Local communities reported drops in tourism income and had to develop new strategies to attract visitors. The Falconio case brought significant changes to Australian law and police procedures. Penalties grew harsher for crimes against tourists, especially in remote regions. Police coordination across state borders was improved for crimes in boundary areas. Mandatory background checks were introduced for all workers in remote tourism sectors. Police gained expanded authority to search on private property if evidence concealment was suspected. Protocols for handling foreign victims and witnesses improved. Specialized police squads for crimes against tourists were formed. Media coverage was global, pushing other countries' governments to update safety recommendations for citizens traveling in Australia. The UK revised its official advice, especially for those heading into remote areas. European tour operators provided more detailed warnings and safety guidance about the outback's risks. Consular services for travelers were expanded. International tourism organizations included the Falconio case in travel safety guidelines. Documentaries and books appeared around the world, further embedding the story in the public imagination. For many, Australia had long been a magnet for young backpackers, with the Working Holiday Visa program drawing millions from Europe, North America, and Asia. By the early 2000s, over 600,000 backpackers arrived each year, with an average stay of 6 months. Popular routes included the eastern coast, Central Australia via Alice Springs and Uluru, and the remote west. Backpacker culture fueled spontaneity and adventure, but also led many to underestimate risks, traveling with minimal gear and limited funds. Hostels and budget accommodations developed along main routes, but in the outback, safe stops can be hundreds of kilometers apart. In the 1990s and early 2000s, limited internet and phone coverage complicated keeping in touch or getting real-time safety info. The Belanglo State Forest backpacker murders committed by Ivan Milat between 1989 and 1992 set a dangerous precedent for hitchhiking travelers. Milat killed 7 young backpackers, German, British, Australian, all hitchhiking south from Sydney. While these were not outback attacks, the case highlighted risks faced by young tourists traveling by thumb, especially in remote areas. After Milat's arrest in 1994, multiple countries updated travel advice, urging citizens to avoid hitchhiking in Australia. The case revealed shortcomings in police communication between states regarding serial crimes against travelers. Its impact extended nationwide, raising awareness of safety not only in cities, but also across the outback, where risk was still more often environmental than criminal. On January 27, 2001, German tourists Gabriel Jaeger, 23, and Armin Huber, 24, vanished during a trip across northwest Australia. The couple arrived in December 2000 with tourist visas, set for 4 months of travel, but limited desert experience. They bought a used Ford Falcon in Perth, spent weeks exploring the west coast, then headed inland. Their last known contact was January 25th at a gas station in Halls Creek, a small town 700 kilometers southeast of Broome. There they filled up on fuel, water, and groceries, asking about the road to Lake Argyle and Pernalulu National Park. A route plan left at their Perth hostel showed an intention to visit the Kimberley region and return to Perth by February's end. When they missed that date, the German consulate notified Australian police on March 3rd. An official search began 2 days later. On March 8th, the Ford Falcon was found in Purnululu National Park, parked at the trailhead for a hiking path. The doors were locked. Passports, cash, a camera, and some gear remained. Missing: backpacks, a tent, sleeping bags, water containers. Search teams scoured hiking routes within 20 kilometers. The park is marked by canyons, rugged rock formations, dense bush. Footprints traced the pair for the first 2 kilometers toward Pickaninny Creek Lookout, then vanished on stone. Searchers combed the area for 3 weeks using police, emergency services, and volunteers, covering 200 square kilometers. Most likely, Yeager and Huber became lost while hiking, succumbing to dehydration amid January temperatures exceeding 45 degrees. A fall into one of the park's many canyons or gorges, some with 200-meter cliffs, was also considered. Animal attack was ruled unlikely. Medical crisis, such as a snake bite or heat stroke, could have led to a split-up. No evidence supported foul play, but that theory was never fully ruled out. The case remains unsolved. Searches are reopened whenever new information or technology becomes available. In November, David Millard was in Alice Springs, planning to hitchhike to Adelaide via Coober Pedy and Marla, a journey of over 700 kilometers crossing remote desert. The last confirmed sighting of Millard was November 24th at a roadside diner on the Stewart Highway, 100 kilometers south of Alice Springs. Witnesses reported Millard standing there with a backpack and a sign reading Adelaide. He appeared healthy and in good spirits. A motorist who stopped to refuel spoke with him for about 15 minutes. Millard told his family he was hitchhiking to Adelaide. When he didn't arrive by the planned date, his employer notified police on December 3rd. The search began December 4th. Thorough searches along the Stewart Highway between Alice Springs and Marla found no sign of Millard or his backpack. Teams checked roadside stops, abandoned buildings, and possible accident sites. Truck drivers and other motorists were interviewed, but no information emerged about who might have picked up Millard. None reported seeing a young man hitchhiking. Traffic analysis showed hundreds of cars pass the spot on that day. Most drivers remained unidentified. Investigations revealed many drivers avoided picking up hitchhikers due to safety concerns or insurance restrictions. The string of backpacker disappearances in early 21st century Australia led to significant shifts in safety advice and the tourism industry. The Australian government launched awareness campaigns about hitchhiking risks, especially in remote areas. Multilingual brochures were distributed. European consulates strengthened warnings for citizens traveling by hitchhiking. Hostels and tourism centers began providing clearer guidance on safe travel methods and recommended routes. Online platforms emerged to help tourists find travel companions, reducing risky solo hitchhiking with strangers. Rental companies offered special rates for young travelers, making vehicle hire more affordable. Backpacker organizations developed systems to register routes and maintain regular contact to monitor traveler safety. By the mid-2000s, the rise of internet and mobile tech altered backpacking travel and safety monitoring. Internet cafes and hostels allowed more regular contact with families and friends. Early social networks such as MySpace and Facebook began to be used by travelers to document journeys and stay connected. GPS devices became more accessible, although many travelers still relied on paper maps and local advice. Mobile phones with international roaming grew more common, yet outback coverage remained spotty. Online forums and safety-focused websites gave tourists places to share risk info and tips. Digital cameras allowed detailed trip documentation, sometimes aiding search efforts. Backpacker disappearances impacted outback tourism economies and Australia's image as a secure destination. Between 2001 and 2005, international visitor numbers to remote Australian areas dropped by 15%. Many budget hotels and hostels reported declining occupancy. Tour operators shifted toward organized tours over independent travel. Hitchhiking as a mode of transport shrank significantly, affecting agencies and info resources. Government investments in tourist safety, adding emergency phones and improving mobile networks, required substantial funding. Insurance premiums rose for solo travelers venturing to remote regions. One of the enigmatic aspects of outback disappearances is the vanishing of individuals with extensive desert knowledge and survival skills. Such cases challenge the notion that expertise guarantees safety. Statistics show 23% of outback disappearances involve locals or people with years of desert experience, higher than expected considering their expertise. This group includes Aboriginal trackers, park rangers, geologists, biologists, mining personnel, and remote area farmers. These people usually have decades of navigation experience, knowledge of water sources, weather patterns, and survival skills passed down for generations. The fact that even such seasoned individuals vanish without a trace adds another layer of mystery to the outback and fuels theories of supernatural or unexplained phenomena. Analysis of these cases reveals unique traits distinguishing them from inexperienced tourist disappearances. On April 15, 2008, Sam Kuhlman, a 41-year-old senior ranger at Kakadu National Park, disappeared during a routine inspection of remote park areas. Kuhlman had 16 years of experience and was considered one of the most skilled navigators for rugged park zones. He was well versed in the flora, fauna, and Aboriginal culture of the region. That day, Kuhlman set out to inspect ancient rock art sites near Noorlangie Rock, about 60 kilometers from the main park office. His route included 5 archaeological points to cover in a day, expected back by 6 p.m. Kuhlman drove a 4-wheel drive Toyota Land Cruiser equipped with a radio, GPS, emergency supplies, and satellite phone. The last radio contact was at 11:30 a.m., reporting arrival at the first inspection site. When Kuhlman failed to return, park staff triggered the search at 10 p.m. the same day. His vehicle was found next morning parked on the trail to one rock art site, engine off, doors locked, keys missing. The radio was set to normal frequency, but silent. Satellite phone was operational inside. Kuhlman's backpack with water, GPS, and notes was missing. Initial searches focused on the archaeological sites he planned to visit. Trackers, including fellow rangers and Aboriginal experts, found Kuhlman's footprints clearly traced for 1.5 kilometers. At the first site, footprints vanished suddenly. The area was an open rocky plateau with ancient rock art and sparse vegetation, no cover to hide tracks. Kuhlman's notebook was found open on a nearby rock with notes on the art's condition dated 11:45 a.m. The handwriting was calm, with no signs of rush or distress, ending mid-sentence. Neither GPS nor water pack were found near the site. Aboriginal trackers reported an unusual energy in the area and refused to search after dark. Search efforts expanded the next day with resources from neighboring parks and Northern Territory rescue units. Canine teams, thermal imaging helicopters, and climbing experts scoured rock formations. Search radius reached 15 kilometers around the last footprints, covering caves, crevices, and water sources. No fresh signs of Kuhlman emerged. Canines tracked his scent near the rock art but failed to follow further, displaying odd behavior and refusal to work in some zones. A week-long search covering over 300 square kilometers found no trace of the ranger. Witnesses reported strange lights moving in odd patterns over Noorlangie Rock the night before disappearance. Park radio operators noted brief interference around the time of disappearance. Local Aboriginal communities spoke of unusual animal behavior. Birds avoiding certain areas, wild dogs howling unusually at night. A regional geologist observed bizarre atmospheric distortions resembling mirages where conditions didn't support them. A meteorological station recorded brief anomalies in the Earth's magnetic field near the site and day of Sam Kuhlman's disappearance. Though unconfirmed scientifically, these reports added a mystical layer to the case and attracted paranormal researchers. Local Aboriginal communities possess a rich mythology explaining disappearances in the outback through spiritual and supernatural forces. Certain desert sites are sacred and guarded by ancestral spirits. Violating these places may lead to disappearance or death. The Dreamtime concept in Aboriginal culture describes a parallel reality where ancestral spirits continue to exist. Some sites are believed to be portals between worlds.
Elders explain some vanishings as spirit callings, when a person is taken to the ancestors' realm for an important spiritual mission. Forbidden land includes areas off-limits to outsiders, with supernatural punishment for trespassers. Some Aboriginal people say modern humans have lost the ability to read Earth signs, unknowingly entering dangerous spiritual zones. Though these beliefs lack scientific acceptance, they provide cultural context for understanding how locals view the mystery of disappearances. Australian folklore includes many creatures believed responsible for abductions. The bunyip is the best known, a large water monster living in swamps, lakes, and rivers, described variably with seal, dog, crocodile traits. Aboriginal legends say bunyips abduct those who approach their watery domains, especially at dusk or night, leaving victims without a trace, no bones left. The yowie, Australia's equivalent of Bigfoot, is a large, hairy humanoid reported in remote areas across various states. Min-min lights are mysterious flickering lights observed in Queensland and the Northern Territory's outback, believed to lure travelers off paths into the desert where they vanish. Drop bears, although real animals, koalas, gained supernatural traits in folklore as creatures capable of hypnotizing and abducting people. Scientific skepticism exists about these legends, but they remain part of cultural heritage, shaping perceptions of outback disappearances. Between 2010 and 2020, 11 cases involve professionals experienced in the outback, an alarming trend. Dr. Margaret Stone, a 53-year-old geologist with 25 years of desert fieldwork, disappeared in 2014 during research in the Great Victoria Desert. Tommy Wilson, a 46-year-old Aboriginal tracker with over 20 years guiding tourists, vanished in 2017 in Uluru Kata Tjuta National Park under circumstances similar to Kuhlman's. Jack Murphy, a 38-year-old mining engineer, disappeared in 2019 during an inspection of a remote Western Australian mine, despite having a satellite tracker and regular radio contact. In all these cases, experienced personnel quickly disappeared in familiar territory, adequately equipped and connected, but vanished without explanation. Pattern analysis shows expert disappearances often occur in regions of notable geological activity, near sacred Aboriginal sites or areas with reported anomalies. Psychological explanations might also play a part. Experts may take more risks due to overconfidence or explore dangerous zones avoided by ordinary tourists. The Min-min light phenomenon is among the most documented and puzzling occurrences in the Australian outback, linked by some researchers to disappearances. The earliest written reports of Min-min lights date back to 1880, when settlers noted strange lights near the Queensland town of Min-min. They appear as glowing spheres or pillars of white, yellow, green, or red light. They appear singly or in groups, move at varying speeds, and vanish suddenly. Witnesses say the lights follow moving cars, approach people, and react to attempts to get closer. Some describe feeling hypnotized by the phenomenon. Over the last 40 years, over 300 Min-min lights have been reported across the outback. Scholars and government agencies study them. Scientific theories involve atmospheric light refraction,
piezoelectric effects in rocks, swamp gases, and plasma phenomena, but none explain all observed features. Analysis shows a correlation between Min-Min light observations and nearby disappearances. About 17% of disappearances involved witnesses who reported unusual lights near or during the vanishings. Especially intriguing are cases where the last radio messages mentioned strange lights or glowing phenomena.
In 2006, tourist Mark Anderson reported by satellite phone that bright flying lights followed his vehicle an hour before communication ended. Search and rescue teams sometimes report observing strange lights during operations, adding to the case's mysterious aura. Some researchers suggest that Min-Min lights may be linked to unknown geophysical processes affecting navigation instruments and disorienting people. While the connection between the lights and disappearances remains speculative, it draws the interest of scientists and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Geophysical surveys of parts of the outback revealed unusual magnetic anomalies, sometimes exceeding normal levels by 10 to 15 times. These anomalies often align with underground ore deposits rich in iron, but some have no clear geological explanation. Compasses and GPS devices can give faulty readings in such areas, explaining some disappearances of even skilled navigators. The impact of magnetic fields on the human brain and behavior is studied by neurobiologists. Some studies suggest strong magnetic fields can affect spatial orientation and memory. Animals relying on magnetic navigation show abnormal behavior in these regions. Birds lose migratory direction. Dogs refuse to work. A correlation exists between magnetic anomaly locations and human disappearances, 42% statistically significant but not proven causal. Paranormal theorists propose exotic explanations, including temporal distortions and interdimensional portals. The time anomaly theory suggests certain outback zones disrupt normal flow of time, transporting people to other temporal periods. Witnesses report sudden changes in light, sound, and weather during vanishings. Interdimensional portals imply spatial tears through which people enter parallel realities or dimensions, based on quantum physics and string theory, though mainstream science skeptically views these ideas regarding disappearances. Some physicists note extreme geological conditions in the outback could theoretically create unique quantum effects, though no evidence exists. The popularity of such theories often stems from science fiction and TV shows rather than actual scientific research. Thank you for watching.